Alright, it's finally that time again. Been waiting over a year to finish this deck, and it's just about done for me to share. Thought I'd share it, so let's begin. Starter, Micro Hold, Draco Kid. On road upon, you draw a card. That's about it. So grade 3s, you run 4 copies of Chaos Breaker Crisis. Its skill is Auto Vanguard skill. Auto Vanguard. Counterblast 1 with Starvader in its card name. When this unit is placed on Vanguard or your G unit with Starvader in its original card name strides, you can pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses one of his or her rearguards and lock it. Second skill is Auto Vanguard. When your opponent's locked card is unlocked, if a unit was not retired due to this effect, during this turn, you may retire that unlocked unit, and if you do, you get to draw a card. This is the main grade 3 you want to be on, other than you want to pitch your other grade 3, because it doesn't have a very good Vanguard skill. But moving on, your other grade 3 is 4 copies of Starvader Chaos Breaker Close. This is the card you want to get rid of from your hand on your turn. Its skill is Auto Vanguard. Choose a card with Starvader in its card name from your hand and discard it. When this unit is placed on Vanguard, circle, or when your G unit with Starvader with its original card name strides, you may pay the cost. If you do, soul charge, and choose one of your opponent's rearguards and lock it. You're not really going to use that skill unless you are stuck on that card. The second skill is what matters. It's Auto Soul Blast 1. When this card is discarded from your hand, if you have a heart card with Chaos in its card name, you may pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand and puts it on his or her rearguard circle as a locked card. So a friend taught me this combo, or not really a combo, but whatever you want to call it. You go into Deluge. Its skill is it makes you discard a card, and if you save up close, you can essentially mostly lock your entire board. You're ripping cards out of their hand, and they can't use those cards unless they have a G Guardian or another card that makes them unlock, which they most likely won't. Moving on to grade 2s, 4 copies of Starvader Strange Dragon. Its skill is Auto. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its card name, which you undoubtedly will, until the end of turn, this unit gets a skill, which is Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks or boosts, if that attack is attacking a Vanguard, your opponent chooses one of his or her rearguards and locks it. If your opponent could not lock, this unit gets 5,000 power until the end of the battle. That's the skill you're mostly going to be using. Second skill is Continuous Rearguard. GB1, if your opponent has a locked card, this unit gets boost. I've never called this card in the back row. I've always put it in the front row, so it gets the power, because mostly your opponent's always going to have locked cards unless somehow you get stuck. Next, 3 copies of Disorder Starvader Iron. Skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its card name, this unit gets 2,000 power until the end of the battle. So it's pretty much always going to get 2,000 power. Second skill is Auto Counterblast 1. When this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its card name, and your opponent has a locked card, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose up to one of your opponent's rearguards and lock it. So, on place, if they already have a locked card, Counterblast 1, lock another card. Next is 2 copies of Starvader Colony Maker. Its skill is Auto CB1, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Link Joker Vanguard and your opponent has a locked card, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for up to one grade 1 or less card with Star Vader and its card name and call it to rearguard, then shuffle your deck. I'm only playing this because it searches out the old crit where you can shuffle it back in deck, and you can get Zinc out, you can get this other grade 1 I'm going to mention, and you can also get you can get Carbon, you can get Plink Draco Kid, because they're both grade 0s. But I'm probably going to switch them out to Photons as soon as I can get them. But moving on, run 2 copies of Star Vader Globularia. This is a card, even though I run 2 of it, somehow I always see it. I don't know how. But its skill is Auto Counterblast 1 when this unit is placed on rearguard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Star Vader and its card name, you may pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses a card from his or her drop zone and puts it on a rearguard circle as a locked card. Until end of turn, this unit gets 3,000 power. Then if your opponent has 2 or more locked cards, this gets 3,000 power. So this card hurts Grand Blue, because you call cards from the drop. I really don't know what else to say about it. If they already have 2 locked cards, which you most likely will, you call this, pay the cost, lock a card from drop, and that just fills their board so they can't call anything. Lastly, for grade 2s is the card I was talking about, Companion Star Vader Photon. Its skill is when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Star Vader and its card name, and your opponent has a locked card, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and lock it. So, they already have a locked card, it's an on-place lock. Hopefully, want to run more of it, but at the moment I can only run 1 right now. Moving on to grade 1s. Run 4 copies of Turmoil Star Vader Zinc. This is the best card I've ever seen in Premium besides the old Wonder Ezel. This is its skill is Act Rearguard Circle. Put this unit into your soul. If you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its card name and your opponent has a locked card, you counter charge 2 and soul charge 2. That's value right there. And the way I play it, a lot of the strides really Soul Blast, so that's why I play 4 of it. And your main deck mostly goes through Counterblast, so it just balances out. Next is 4 copies of Crunching Deleter Barul. I don't know how you say it. I mean, it has a good skill, looks cool. Even has a little dragon in the art. But its skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When placed, Soul Blast 1, and your opponent cannot turn his or her cards face up during his or her next turn's end phase. So you call it, you Soul Blast, and at the end of their turn, they can't unlock their rear guards, and they can't counter charge or turn anything face up. So let's say you go into the old Glue Ball Dragon, you lock their entire board, you call this, you Soul Blast. At the end of their turn, they have a full locked board, and they have all they can do is swing with their Vanguard. Pretty good card. Next is 2 copies of Iron Wall Star Vader Thorium. It's the old grade 1 PG. I think it's pretty cool. But it has Continuous Sentinel, and then the other skill, Auto. Choose a card from your hand and discard it. When this unit is placed on Guardian Circle from hand, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your units with Star Vader and its card name, and it cannot be hit until the end of the battle. If your opponent has 3 or more locked cards, you draw a card. So, essentially, if you lock their entire board and they're attacking with Van, and all you have is this, you just, this and one other card, You place this on Guardian Circle, discard the other card, have 3 or more locked cards, you get to draw a card. So it's essentially just playing one card, 'cause it's pretty much free. Last grade 1 is Prison Gate Star Palladium. I was talking to a friend of mine, actually, about debating on playing this card, and the Crunching Deleter. I ran this at 3. I just saw too much of it, and I didn't really have to use the skill as much. But its skill is Auto Rearguard Circle, Counterblast 1, put this unit into your soul. During your opponent's end phase, when your opponent's locked card is unlocked, if you have a Link Joker Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, you can lock that unit. So, they unlock their stuff, you pay the cost, you put this to soul, and you can relock that, a single unit. I mostly just use this card for discarding for like Deluge or just off PG. I never really, since I only have one of it, I never really can ride it, and there's no point. But anyway, on to grade 0s. And this feels really weird, but it's 1 copy of Involution Starvader Carbon. I used to run this card as my starter, but I was missing on a free draw, so I decided to change it to the Micro Hole Draco Kid. But this skill, or Carbon skill, is Auto Forerunner, so you just move, when it's rode upon, you just call it to a Rearguard Circle, another one. And its other skill is Acts Rearguard Circle, put this unit into your soul. If your opponent has a locked card, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or less card with Starvader and its card name not named Carbon, call to your Rearguard Circle and shuffle your deck. So essentially, you call this card, I search out the next card, which is playing Draco Kid, then I do that skill. It's essentially just deck thinning, so you can get closer to your triggers when you swing, but you can also get Zinc off of this. And so when I was playing this as my starter, I just, when I hit grade 3, just shoved a soul and call out Zinc, which is pretty great actually. But finally, the other card I was talking about that you can search with for Carbon is Starvader playing Draco Kid. Its skill also has Forerunner, but the second skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. You can Counterblast 1, retire this unit, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal 1 card with Chaos in its card name, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. If your opponent has a locked card, he or she chooses one of his or her rear guards and locks it. So, you call Carbon, you do Carbon skill, you can call out playing Draco Kid, and look at top 7 for a Chaos. The reason why I run it is because I only run 8 grade 3s, and so I really need the Searcher, and since I don't play the Stride fodder, I really need this card in the deck. Lastly are the triggers. So, unfortunately, you gotta play the old crit, which is Starvader, Paradigm Shift, Dragon. Yeah, it's a 5,000 power, but it's a 10k shield. But what's really cool is the skill is, because it's Auto Rearguard Circle, you can put this unit on the top of your deck if you have a Vanguard with Starvader and its card name, and if your opponent has a locked card. Choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards in the back row and lock it, then shuffle your deck. So, essentially, they already have a locked card, but the only card left they have that is unlocked is the back row. So you call this, put it on top of the deck, then lock the unit that's in the back row. So then they could have a full locked board, or essentially just some locked cards they can't call over unless they're being called as locked. Next is your V-Series Lady Healer of the Torn World. Don't know much to say about it. It's just 20 or a 10k power, 20k shield. That's about it. Next is the other useful crit, which we got in, I believe, Premium Collection last year. It's sharp points of breakdown, Vandal Sharp. So its skill is just like any of the other ones. Auto rearguard circle GB1 when your Vanguard attacks, puts this unit into your soul, draw a card, and one of your Vanguards gets plus 10k until the end of the battle. The other reason why I play this is because this deck struggles with getting power since you have to play so many old cards. That's why you gotta run Vandal Sharp. But you also get power off the strides in some of the grade 2s mentioned earlier. So just moving on. 3 copies of Asteroid Wolf, just like the heal, but it's 15k shield. Nothing more about that. And then 2 copies of Flowers in Vacuum Cosmo Reef. It's just the draw PG for the clan. Run 2 of these and 2 thorium. I tested out 3 thorium, 1 of this, and then 3 of Cosmo Reef, and then 1 thorium. I didn't like either option, so I decided just to split it up evenly. So that's where we are now. And moving on to the G Zone, run 3 copies of Death Star Vader Chaos Universe. By the way, I love this art the most. Anyway, all the strides have the stride step where you choose 1 or more cards to some other grades, being 3 or more, and you choose them and discard them from your hand. Not really gonna explain that. If you play Premium, you know how to stride. But its skill is Act Vanguard skill. Once per turn, you can counterblast 1, choose a card face down named Death Star Vader Chaos Universe from your G Zone and turn it face up. If you have a heart with Chaos in its card name, choose up to one of your opponent's rearguard circles, and your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand and puts it on that rearguard circle face down as a locked card. And if your G Zone has 2 or more face up cards, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and locks it. So essentially this, or for me at least, this is my second stride. I go into something else, then I go into you. So they already have a locked card, then you rip a card out of their hand, and then you get to lock another one. So it's just, yeah, it's fun. A lot of people are annoyed by it because you rip cards out of their hand, but that's what the deck does, and it locks stuff on board. So I don't know what else to say about it. Moving on, 2 copies of Death Star Vader Chaos Universe Althani. This is essentially your first stride, if not the new glue ball. But I mostly go into this just because there's, at the beginning of the stride, or when both players are striding, they don't usually call a locked or a big board. So you can get the skill off pretty easily. Its skill is auto Soul Blast 1 and choose a card face down with Chaos in its card name from your G Zone, turn it face up. I just usually flip it face up because it's just easier for me. But when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, if you have a heart with Chaos in its card name, you may pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses two of his or her rearguards and locks them. If he or she could not lock 2 cards, you draw 2 cards and choose 2 of your units, and they get plus 2,000 until end of turn. So let's say you're going second, so you stride first. You go into this. Let's say you only have 1 rearguard. So you can either use the stride skill of Crisis if you're on it, or you can just use Althani, pay the cost, and they lock their 1 rearguard. And since 2 or 1 isn't 2, you still get the you still get the draw 2 and the plus 2,000 power. So it's a pretty neat first stride. Again, some people may go into the new glue ball, but I just like this as a better first stride. Speaking of the new glue ball, play one copy of Death Star Vader Glue Ball Avalanche. Disregard the stride step if you're a premium player, but its second skill is continuous G-Zone. If your G-Zone has 2 or more face-up Death Star Vader Glue Ball Avalanche, when your opponent's card would be unlocked, bind it face down instead. I'll get back to that skill, but its third skill is Act Vanguard skill. Once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and turn a card from your G-Zone face-up. Choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and locks them, and all your front row units get 2,000 power till end of turn for each of your opponent's locked cards and face down cards in their bind zone. The only reason why I run 1 is because if you play 2 and both of them get up face up in the G zone, you can't do Crisis skill. When cards are unlocked, you can draw a free card. So that's why I only run 1. Some people may run 2 and just not flip the other one, but why go through the hassle when you can just play this and then flip something else like I do with Chaos Universe. That's why I run 3. Next is the old glue ball, Death Star Vader Glue Ball Dragon. This is one of the finishers of the deck. So skill is Act Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and choose a face-down card with the same name as this unit from your G-Zone and turn it face-up. If you have a hard card with Star Vader in its card name, your opponent chooses one of his or her rear guards for each face-up card in your G-Zone and locks them. So let's say you have a lot of GB counts. You go into Vest, you pay the cost, and you can essentially just lock their entire board with 1 stride, which is nice, because then if you play the Crunching Deleter, pay the cost, at the end of their turn, they can't turn it face up, or their units face up, so you have another turn of their entire board being locked. Glue Ball's second skill is Continuous Vanguard Circle, GB3. All of your units in the front row of Star Vader and their card names get plus 3,000 power for each of your opponent's locked card. So let's say they play a Protect clan or a Force clan. They have 5 rear guard units, if you can even call it that. And your front row units with Star Vader, they each get 3,000 power. So that's essentially like 15,000 power for each unit in the front row. For the last stride, it is Death Star Vader Chaos Breaker Deluge. This is your second finisher, if not your first. This is saved for later. Its skill is Act Vanguard Circle, first turn, GB3, Soul Blast 1, choose a face-down card from your G-Zone and turn it face up. You also choose a card from your hand and discard it. Again, that's what I was talking about with Close. You go into Deluge, discard Close, you finish Deluge's skill, then you use Close's skill to rip a card out of their hand. But finishing off this skill is, if you have a hard card with Chaos in its card name, your opponent chooses 2 cards from his or her hand and puts them on separate rearguard circles as locked cards. Then, if the number of cards in your opponent's damage is 4 or less, choose one of your opponent's locked cards and your opponent puts that card into his or her damage face down. So that's why it's essentially your finisher. If they're at 4 damage, you can rip 2 cards, essentially 3 cards out of their hand, and put 1 in damage, making them go to either 4 or 5, depending on how much damage they have on your turn. So, G Guardians now. This run, I would run 2 copies of Genesis Machine Deity Death Sturgeon, but I only have 1 copy, so I'm using Maxwell as the other copy. But Death Sturgeon's skill is auto, Soul Blast 1, when this unit is placed on Guardian Circle, if the number of locked cards is 2 or more, you pay the cost and draw a card. So you discard a heal, go into Death Sturgeon, pay the cost. Essentially, they will have 2 or more locked cards, so you just get to draw a card. That's about it for that. Next, one copy of Genesis Beast Destiny Guardian. This is one of the better G Guardians of the deck. Its skill is auto, when this unit is placed in Guardian Circle, choose up to 2 locked cards and unlock them. If a total of 2 or more cards were unlocked with this effect, this unit gets 10,000 power until the end of the battle. So let's say essentially you're going against someone, they swing with their Vanguard, you go into this, you can lock, well, first you go into Lock Screen, you can lock your own stuff, then you go into Destiny Guardian, then you can unlock your own rearguard so you don't have to unlock theirs, and this gets the 10,000 power because you unlocked 2 or more. Lastly, for the G Guardians is the card I just mentioned. Darkness that lights up Demise Lux Karina. Its skill is auto, GB1, counterblast 1, and choose a face down G Guardian from your G zone and turn it face up. When this unit is on Guardian Circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose up to 3 of your rear guards, lock them, and your opponent locks one of his or her units in the back row for each card that was locked. So, let's say you have your Vanguard and then 2 units in the front row, 1 unit in the back, and you're being attacked. You go into Lock Screen and you pay the cost. You lock your board, and they gotta lock as many units in their back row as you locked. So they would lock 3 if they have 3 rear guards in the back row. So that's about it for the deck. I'm glad I'm finally done with it, so I can play test it or play with it in tournaments and take it to regionals and Springfest. But again, thanks for watching this. I hope to upload again soon with some standard decks, and hopefully I can also make some deck profiles for the upcoming set, the next stage with Tri 3, and then maybe do some unboxings with the Tri 3 trial decks. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you later.